Yeah, ready when you are, Paul.
Cheers, Finn. Hi, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to episode 5 of City Sentry's RCC webinar series. I'm your co-host, Paul Leamy, and I work with the City Sentry project team as their principal advisor and ambassador. I'm also a practicing solicitor with over 25 years' experience in city law. And I'm really excited about this final episode for two reasons. Firstly, because for many of you, it may well mark the start of your journey into the solicitor apprenticeship application process, but also because it gives me the opportunity to publicly say a massive congratulations to my co-host Finn on securing his solicitor apprenticeship with Stevenson Harwood. Finn.
Thank you very much, Paul. Really, really appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I know the weather's hot, and as I've said, with quite a few of you who have been engaged with our Iron City program, a massive thank you for your commitment through the hot weather and sort of staying engaged with our series so far. I'm currently working as City Sentry's Engagement and Research Associate. And as Paul has said, I've just accepted a solicitor apprenticeship offer with Stevenson Harwood, which I'm really, really excited about. So this is our fifth and final session, and it's acting as just a recap for you all, basically, about the series so far, and basically to just condense all of the information that we've given you, hopefully, throughout the course of the SCC program into one episode. So we're going to make a highlights reel as we always do. We're going to put it out on our YouTube page, and this can hopefully act as a bit of a beacon for you to keep coming back and reflecting on your application processes as they're going forward, making sure that you're on track, giving you those top tips one more time to make sure that everyone feels as confident as possible, essentially, going into the next stages of their application cycle, which hopefully will be starting for most of you come September. As I always mention, I will just say that each of the panel will speak from their own experiences, and we massively encourage you to do specific research into every single firm that you apply for. This is just going to act as that generic advice that you can use going forward into most of your applications. First of all, before we go into our usual question format, I'd like to invite Daisy from Stevenson Harwood to talk us through a few of the nuances and the differences between the apprenticeship route and the traditional university route. I'll just pass over to you for that, Daisy. Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Finn. By way of introduction, I'm Daisy. I'm the Senior Manager of the Early Careers team here at Stevenson Harwood, Finn's future firm. And I've been in early careers in the law for about 10 years. So the difference between an apprenticeship and the conventional long-established route into becoming a solicitor via a training contract. This is quite a handy flow chart. Are we making the slides available, Finn? Oh, they'll be in the recording, won't they?
They'll be in the recording. I can also send them out to everyone in an email after
Yeah,
as
I
well, if
think
that'd be useful.
this is a really kind of neat way to visualize what those routes look like. So if you are pursuing a training contract and ultimately qualification as a solicitor, then in the first instance, it begins with your A levels or the International Baccalaureate or whatever sort of year 12, year 13 qualifications you are pursuing. Once you have done those, you have the option of beginning an apprenticeship immediately on completion of those, or of going to university. And obviously you can take gap years and things like that either way. But for the purposes of today, let's say you're just going kind of straight through from stage to stage. If you go to university, you might choose to study law or you might choose a different subject. Either way, it'll be a 3-year undergraduate degree in the first instance. And if you want to become a solicitor after that 3-year undergraduate degree, you will also have to do a law conversion course if you've chosen a different subject for your undergraduate degree. It's not a problem if you want to be a lawyer but you don't want to study law first. We've got lots of associates, managing associates, partners here at Stevenson Harwood who have got degrees in all kinds of disciplines, not just in law, but it does mean an extra year of study is required before you can begin the next stage in the process, which is the Solicitors Qualifying Exams, or SQE. It generally takes a year in order to complete the SQE, which is an exam delivered in 2 parts, SQE1 and SQE2. And after you've done the SQE, you can begin your training contract at a law firm, and that takes 2 years. and after that you are qualified as a solicitor. So in total, you've got your 3-year undergraduate degree, at least a year for the SQE, plus the 2 years of a training contract, so 6 years. And you have all of the debt which is associated with going to university, so your student loans, possibly maintenance loans if you take those out as well. In an ideal world, the studying of the SQE would be paid for by a law firm, because you would apply for a training contract during the 2nd and 3rd years of your undergraduate degree. And then the firm that you've secured that opportunity with will pay those fees for you, but they won't contribute to your undergraduate fees. Which are really significant, as it says on the screen, anywhere between 27 and 40k. So it's a really significant outlay and significant amount of debt if you're funded via student loans. The alternative route is the apprenticeship route. Again, beginning with your A-levels or the equivalent college qualifications, and then going straight into employment with a law firm. For the most part, you will be working from that firm for 4 days of the week and studying on 1 day of the week. That is studying for an undergraduate law degree, which you will complete over the first 4 years of the apprenticeship. And for the final 2 years of the apprenticeship, because it lasts for 6 years altogether, you're doing the SQE, you're doing those solicitors qualifying exams. So at the end of that 6 years, you are a qualified solicitor. You will not have any of the debt that an individual who had gone to university in order to qualify will have, because the firm that is employing you and paying you a salary is also covering the cost of your undergraduate degree, which is the studying that you're doing on that 1 day a week basis. So you're learning and you're working at the same time. You are having a different experience from that of somebody who's at university, but you are qualifying as a solicitor conceivably when you're 24, maybe 25, if you have taken a gap year, and qualifying as an associate with 6 years of experience working in your firm behind you, which is a really strong position to be in. Finn, do you want to move to the next slide? There we go. So this slide just kind of breaks down those costs in a little bit more detail. So if you're an apprentice, you are earning a salary every year, and the firm that you're doing your apprenticeship with is paying for your course fees. Whereas if you are at university, that is self-funded via student loans or however else you might be funding university. And you might do some part-time work at the same time as studying, but not to the same extent as having a salary at a law firm. And then you are hoping to secure that training contract so that the firm will fund your SQE studies, whereas that is built into the apprenticeship program if you are pursuing a solicitor apprenticeship. So those are the kind of key differences in terms of funding and in terms of what those stages look like. Is it helpful to stop for questions now, or are we doing those at the end, Finn?
I think we'll probably just go for questions at the end. So if you've got those questions, start to put them in the Q&A function now, and we can pass those to the panel at the end. Thank you really for going through that, Daisy. That's been really, really useful. And the reason we've asked Daisy to do that is that I think in my year with City Sentry, that's probably the question that we've had people come in and asking us most is, how do I know which route is right for me? How do I know if I want to go to university? How do I know if an apprenticeship's, the right one for me? How do they both work? Are they both weighted in the same way in my future career plans? And I think it's really just an important point to break those down and make those really, really clear side by side as we've just done. So a massive thank you there, Daisy. And I'll just introduce our panel then for today's session. So we have, as you've already met, Daisy Mortimer from Stevens & Harwood. She's a senior future talent manager. We've got Aoife O'Sullivan from A&O Sherman, who's an early career specialist. And then we've got 2 solicitor apprentices, Ollie Youngman, who works at HFW. And we have also got Clea, who works at Broadfield, again, as a solicitor apprentice. So massive thank you to the panel for their time. And I'll pass over to you, Paul, for our first question.
Brilliant, thanks, Finn. And the first question really is for the 2 apprentices that we've got on, and it's broken down into 2 parts. So I'll deal with it in 2 stages. So thinking back to when you were in year 11, year 12, did you always know that you wanted to be a solicitor? can I come to you first on that one, Ollie?
Yes, absolutely. I'd say not particularly. It was something that kind of it's a bit of a interesting story, but it all kind of stemmed around one of my first times ever coming to London, and I was with my parents, and we walked past the Royal Courts of Justice, and that was kind of the first spark in my head of basically wanting to think of, whether I wanted to be a lawyer or not. And at the time, I was kind of more mathematically inclined rather than writing. My scores from GCSE English weren't that great. But I like the process. I like going through a process, and I managed to find that sweet spot with law and kind of English, getting better at my English through law, in fact, in a sense that law, in my opinion, it's like a process. You get the law, then you apply it to the scenario, and then you come to your own judgment, which you can kind of then give your own personal opinion on. And I think that from then on, realizing that, that's when I then decided I wanted to pursue law, leaving college and then not leaving college, leaving my secondary school at the time to go to college specifically to study law. And then just from then on, yeah, that's when I knew that I wanted to be a solicitor.
Brilliant, thanks. And Claire, is that a similar sort of situation for you, or had you sort of decided very early on that you wanted to be a solicitor?
I think, well, I sort of had this idea of law as being very much about, being a criminal barrister, sort of like representing your clients in court. And I think that initially derived during the COVID pandemic. I think a lot of things were happening politically at the time, like the Black Lives Matter movement. And I got really interested in human rights law, criminal law at the time, just like understanding what my rights were as an individual. And sort of as that interest developed, I wanted to research different areas of law, and I just found it quite interesting overall. I also think the nature of law in general was quite relevant to my background. Like, I was a tutor in year 12, so I really liked that client interaction that I had, and building relationships with people and helping them. And you really get to do that with law, as well as obviously having that technicality aspect of it, which was why I was interested in it. And I was also quite, unlike Ollie, I was more humanities based. I hated maths, I hated numbers, I hated science. So it felt right for me to just have a subject where it was very much about like arguing your case across, arguing your point across, and analysing and dissecting arguments. So I think that's where it sort of derived from.
Okay, brilliant. And sticking with you, in terms of the decision between going down the traditional university route and the solicitor apprenticeship route that Daisy talked us through at the start of the session, how did you make that decision? And was there a sort of a defining point where you thought, actually, this is the right route for me to go down the apprenticeship route?
Yeah, of course. I think I was in two minds. I remember in year 13, I was very apprehensive of the apprenticeship route because it was such a long scheme. I mean, it's a 6-year commitment, and I didn't want to get roped into something that I didn't enjoy, or it was just, I was very apprehensive of it. And in fact, during year 13, I took more time spending on actual applications for university. I think I only applied for one apprenticeship, and I did not put much effort into that. But as I was sort of doing my A-levels, that's when like all these like apprenticeship videos came out on TikTok, and I think that's when City Sentry started becoming more popular, and just the idea of getting involved in law at such an early stage in my career became quite interesting to me. I think that's when I decided, I'm going to just take a risk and take a gap year, defer my university offer for a year. And if it doesn't work out, or if I decide if it's not for me, then it's not for me, and that's fine. I think what really sold it for me just generally was the exposure that I would get into the legal industry at such a young age. And you get, speaking from my experience now, you get so much independence. You like, as you progress, like I'm in my second year, as you progress, more people trust you, and just being entrusted with people's lives, these documents, it was a factor into the decision that I made. Like, I wanted that trust and I wanted that responsibility quite early on. And I think, like, if you are considering between uni and apprenticeships right now, I'd really suggest sitting with yourself and understanding the skills that you have. Like, are you someone that likes to learn practically, as in, learning on the job, but also actually doing the theory at the same time? Is that something that you're appealed to, or would you prefer just getting the theory out of the way, and having that to back yourself when you do eventually enter into the legal industry? Because it is very easy to like focus on the financial incentives, and they are great, and I think that is one of sort of the factors that I considered. But you do need to make sure that like you have an inkling and an idea that you're going to be suited in a legal environment, like a fast-paced environment. And I think you can do that by like, joining these sessions or asking apprentices of their own experience.
Brilliant, thanks, Claire. And Ollie, can you talk us through your decision-making process? Was there a defining moment for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say mine's quite similar to Clear's in the fact that, first of all, I mean, at least in my college, at least, apprenticeships weren't really advocated for. It was, very solely kind of going down that one route of university. So originally, I planned to go to university. I'd done my 5 options, and it was actually a friend that started to tell me about apprenticeships. He solely told me about them just as a backup, due to, some of the grades being slightly lower. So that's when I started applying to apprenticeships on the side of doing my A-levels, still with the plan in my head of wanting to go to university. However, obviously through time and through countless applications and hours spent researching the solicitor apprenticeship itself, researching firms, researching what I would actually be getting up to on the apprenticeship, it's then that I found that balance, and there, like you said, that kind of realization of, I think this would work out for me. And I completely agree with what Clea said. I think you need to sit down, look at who you are as a person and whether you would be applicable in the solicitor apprenticeship and whether that would benefit you. And I think me personally, I wanted somebody that just wanted to get, jump straight into it, get started. And I mean, from the sounds of going, you can go to university and you might not potentially have the chance of actually gaining a training contract after that, because it's a lot of hard work and it's a reality that I never really accepted, going into the apprenticeship. But then to be given this opportunity, kind of almost this fast track, straight down, you get a TC, you're instantly working in city law, depending on where you are, whether that is the city or not, you're just working in a law firm, you've got a job, you're earning money. I think there's a lot of positives to be taken out of this, and that was my defining moment.
Thanks, Ollie. Finn.
Thank you both for those answers, and I think that really leads into my next question. So if I come to you first on this one, Aoife, many students watching tonight will be sort of deciding which route's right for them, where they can see themselves for the next 6 years of their life, hopefully going towards qualification. From a firm's perspective, what type of students best suited to an apprenticeship, and what questions should they be asking themselves before they choose between the 2 pathways?
This is a really good question. So, I mean, I don't think there is one better route. It's about choosing the route that best suits you. So an apprenticeship can be a fantastic opportunity for students who are ready to enter the workplace straight away, enjoy learning by doing, excited by the idea of balancing work and study from day one. And I think it's important to remember that apprentices need to be organised, super resilient and comfortable managing those competing priorities, because they'll be building their legal knowledge while working in the professional environment. But when deciding between uni and an apprenticeship, I think I'd encourage the students to ask themselves a couple of questions. How do you learn best being one of them? I think it's important to remember that even if you do pursue the apprenticeship route, you are still studying for a university degree. Are you ready for the professional workplace environment? What do you want your next few years to look like? Obviously, the apprenticeship is a 6-year commitment, but also the university route and the following qualifications is still the same amount of time that you are committing to this same career path. Uni will offer you the traditional experience. I say traditional in quotation marks because a traditional uni experience is different for everybody. Whereas the apprenticeship provides early responsibility that you just wouldn't get going down the traditional uni route. It gives you practical experience and opportunity to learn while you earn. Neither route is right for everybody, and that's absolutely okay. That's why there's the option of picking different routes. So I think the biggest question is, how do you learn best, and what do you immediately want thinking about the September after finishing school?
That's great. Thank you for that, Aoife. What would you say on that, Daisy, if I come to you?
Agree with everything that Aoife has said. And I think that point about how do you learn best is really important. And when you are an apprentice, there isn't the same amount of time to get familiar with things. So our expectation to a degree is that our apprentices land, and there's lots of induction and lots of training and lots of support, but they are doing real work from day one of the apprenticeship, and they are hands-on, working with clients, working with partners, working with associates. And that means it is quite a steep learning curve if you haven't been in a sort of corporate professional environment before. It's not the kind of theoretical learning that you would be doing at university. It's real life, real cases, real matters from day one. If you're someone who is excited about that, then an apprenticeship might be absolutely the right choice for you. If you're someone who thinks that sounds daunting, then maybe that's something for you to kind of consider further before you decide which is right for you. I think the other thing is just that there are really big lifestyle differences between being a university student and being a solicitor apprentice. And it might be the case that if you go to university, you carry on living at home, but you also might move out. And that could also be the case for a solicitor apprentice. You might continue to live at home, or you might say, well, I'm earning a salary, I can afford to move out and live on my own and have that independence that I would have at university. But you won't have the same level of access to peers, because you'll be one of quite a small number of people in a given firm who are also doing apprenticeships. I mean, you'll be part of an enormous group of professionals who are doing the same thing, but you don't have flatmates necessarily in the way that you do when you go to university. You don't have course mates in that way. You have the other apprentices who are studying with you, but they are doing apprenticeships at their own firms. It's just a different way of studying for a degree whilst working at the same time. So it's just a very different student experience. And I think that is worth reflecting on and thinking about, given that it is a 6-year commitment if you do an apprenticeship, or 3-year commitment if you do an undergraduate degree at university. How do you like to learn, and how do you want the next few years to look? What is the shape that you're hoping for?
If you don't mind me jumping in just on that, Daisy, because you made a really good point there about actually what the student experience looks like. And one thing I have said to kind of prospective candidates before is your friends from home will always be your friends from home. They'll come and visit you. You'll go and visit them. You have your weekends. While you may not have the university society experience, your firm is likely to have network and sports groups as well to be involved in, which actually gives you a much broader reach into a professional network rather than people who would be in your year group. And one, whether it may be a selling point or not, is while you are earning that salary as an apprentice going through your 6 years, you can actually afford to do these social things that you may not be able to do at the traditional university path as well. Even working a part-time hospitality role wouldn't pay for as nice of a holiday as an apprenticeship salary would as well. And you've got the luxury of having that annual leave and study leave. Just came to mind there when you were talking about the experience, but something I think is still really important for students to know as well.
Agreed. And actually, firms are quite good at getting their apprentices to network with apprentices at other firms. So we do try and foster something akin to a university experience. So you'll have your sort of little group of apprentices, your own cohort at a given firm. But we also try and create opportunities through City Century, for example, for apprentices at different firms to meet each other. So firms do try to facilitate a bit of the kind of fun that you would have at university.
Thank you both for those contributions. They're really, really useful. And I know they would have been so useful to me, sort of looking over the past couple of years to have that in mind before I went for my applications. Paul, I'll pass back to you.
Yeah, sure. And just to echo what Daisy and Aoife have said there, one of the things at City Century that we're really focusing on at the moment is that whole experience, and what can we do, and what can City Century law firms do as a collective to better that experience and create more opportunities for apprentices outside of the working environment. So this is, I think, particularly something that's important for those like Finn who are relocating to London. And so, we'll be moving away from friends, family, and the like. And one of the things we're doing at the moment as part of a relocation working group is trying to build connections with some of the full-time students studying law at the universities based in London. So we've built connections with UCL, with LSE, with a view to apprentices being able to create a kind of social network with some of the full-time students. And it kind of works both ways, really, in terms of it helps those who are perhaps moving to London to build their social network, but it also helps those full-time students to build connections within the law firms that may be their target firms. So I think it's something that there's a real focus on. I know the City of London Solicitors Company has also started running kind of sports teams and sports events that solicitor apprentices can now get involved with. So I think we're getting there in terms of ensuring that the experience of studying alongside working is a bit more akin to the experience of going off to university, albeit the two routes are very different, and the experience is always going to be slightly different, and it's an individual choice as to which experience is best. I think for them. So moving to the next question. So you've decided that law is the right career path for you. You've considered the two different routes into the profession. So the next question that a lot of students are asking us is, how do I differentiate between firms? There's lots of firms out there. So, how do I research firms? So this is one for the apprentices, I think, first. In terms of researching firms, many students can find that really quite overwhelming. There's a whole host of information out there, and there's often, I think, a danger of information overload. And there's just many options available. So can you kind of talk us through how you approached researching firms, and what made you realise that the firm you've actually joined was the right firm for you? Could I go to you first on that one, Clea?
Yeah, of course. I'm quite an organized person. Like, I need sort of a list to understand like what I personally wanted to prioritize. So what I found helpful was creating a research grid, just a list of what I need in a law firm specifically, because I know it's important for you to sell yourself, but you also need to make sure that the firms that you're applying to are the ones that you want to actually spend at least the next 6 years of your life in. So I would say create a research grid of things that you would prioritize. So for me, it was things like office locations, the type of work and the practice areas that they do, the culture. Do they have any social activity groups? Do they have any DI groups? And can you get involved in them? And just like the nature of the clients. Are they big clients? Are they small clients? The firm size. These are just to name a few, but just have a list of like what you're actually interested in. And once you've got these priorities listed and you've figured out the answers, like what do you want? Do you want like a smaller practice firm? Do you want a general practice firm? So for instance, for me, when I was considering where I wanted to apply, I really wanted to make sure that I entered into a firm that did general practice, so I could really get an experience of all the different practice areas as much as possible. And I was able to do that through applying to Broadfield, or at the time it was BB Pitmans. We do a mixture of corporate work, but also private client work. My first seat was commercial real estate. Now it's private wealth. So very different things. And it's really been helpful for me to actually like understand and like direct my focus, like where I would like to have my next seat in. Is that more private client based or more corporate based? So just, figure that out. And then once you do, I would say like in terms of actually researching the firms, looking at the firm's website is a good starting point, and their LinkedIn. I feel like a lot of people sleep on the actual firm's LinkedIn. That's where they really do talk about the deals that they've made, and just anything that could actually spike your interest, because I do understand that some of the firms' websites can be a bit difficult to actually like find the information that you want. There's other research websites like Legal Cheek, Chamber Students. My Launchpad is also a really good one. On their LinkedIn and Instagram page, they do a lot of they put out a lot of information about sort of like what practice areas are available and what you'd be interested in. And I think they do like some webinars as well, which would be interesting for you to go have a look at. I also, in terms of like finding out what practice areas you're interested in, signing up to newsletters as well would be good. So Zip Law and Little Law are really good for you to like get an overview of what's going on in the world and how that's affecting law firms and their clients, and just the work that lawyers do. And it will build up your commercial awareness skills, and it will give you like sort of an inkling of what practice areas you might be interested in, and then in turn what firms you'd be interested in. So that's what I would suggest.
Okay, brilliant. And coming to you, Ollie, how did you go about researching firms, and how did you decide that HFW was the firm for you?
Yeah, so I'd say quite similar to Clea in that I wanted to be quite organized with my approach, and I think that when it comes to kind of students doing that now, I think, well, at least in my opinion, it's gotten easier, especially with the introduction of AI and just how sophisticated it's beginning to get. I did use AI when it came to researching firms, and I think that that can cut out quite a lot of the time spent, having to search through these websites to find out what kind of sectors they're involved in and so on. So to start, I created a general list of firms that had these solicitor apprenticeship. First criteria, and quite obvious in my opinion, would be location. Me personally, I only wanted to really look at solicitor apprenticeships based in London, so I used that as my first piece of criteria. And then again, like Clea, finding out these other pieces of criteria that you want to keep adding to then narrow it down to then create a list that you then want to look at applying at. And I think that AI, again, can be very useful in streamlining this approach, being able to create a table, being able to then add in, okay, I want to look at X practice area, please show me firms that have this practice area. And then I think that it will just save your time. And whether you're a visual learner, whether you just want it in kind of a linear form, AI can do this. And in terms of whether HFW, how did I find out that HFW was the right fit for me? Again, this actually did come from researching with AI and looking at what practice areas did come with HFW. HFW itself is very sector focused, meaning that they're quite niche and they're very interesting, and that's why they are quite good at what they do. So for example, I'm currently sat in aerospace, but other kind of really big sectors that we practice in are shipping and commodities. I think by the looks of it, I thought that the work, and again, from researching what the firm had done through the articles that they've written on both LinkedIn and the website themselves, the work and the client that HFW deals with, it's insanely interesting to me. So I chose that. And then just on the side of that, more towards the solicitor apprenticeship side, and I think this is something that quite a lot of people should look at when researching firms, is seat rotations. This is something that I think can be kind of almost as a given, that people think that yes, you'll be getting rotations within the solicitor apprenticeship. Me personally, I really wanted rotations. I really wanted to be able to move around the company, whether that be business services or whether that be just legal seats. I wanted to make sure that I had this. And also, just considering my background and wanting to hopefully work outside of the UK in the future, HFW having a guaranteed international secondment was something that I thought, yes, that's for me. And then again, just moving on to kind of Legal Cheek, amazing work-life balance. A lot of people have commented on it. A lot of people have commented on the fact that there's not a lot of hierarchy. And I thought, yeah, that's perfect for me. And that's why I went with HFW.
Brilliant, thanks, Ollie. And are there any other resources? So Clea mentioned a few resources there in terms of what students can be looking at to assist with that. Are there any others that you've come across?
So I'd say MLP, MLP is an amazing resource. They have a really good spreadsheet that can be used to look at firms and what they do, as well as deadlines. Surprisingly, I'd also say just a general Google search and also a lot of social media. So there's a lot of people who've also started to create kind of accounts, whether this be on TikTok or LinkedIn, surrounding solicitor apprenticeships. From then on, I also think it's really good to kind of join those networks. I know that quite a few people have done apprenticeship networks that can be found on WhatsApp, where you can kind of join the specific groups of people who are applying to those firms. And I think, yeah, just kind of more generally, the apprenticeship guide, not going to uni, anything that's kind of more broadly apprenticeship related, I find that, yeah, they're really good for finding the apprenticeships themselves. But also, again, moving back to my point, AI is also really good at finding this and noting it down for you.
Brilliant, thanks. And you touched on it there. Those kind of apprenticeship groups, I think, are really quite valuable in terms of sharing knowledge with each other and working with each other throughout the kind of application cycle process. I think it is so important. If I think back to when I was applying for a training contract, we took a completely different view, and it was everyone was very sort of close guarded, and nobody would tell anyone else what they're doing because it's such a competitive environment. But I think one of the things that I admire about aspiring solicitors coming into the profession today is the kind of the openness and the willingness to help each other to navigate the pathways into law. Thanks for that, Finn.
Yeah, thank you for those contributions. Cheers, Paul. So it's no secret that we know how many people are now applying to solicitor apprenticeships. In recent years, we're getting some firms potentially over 1,000 applicants for the roles. So if I come to you on this one, Daisy, to start with, when an application comes across your desk or comes to the future talent team, what really makes it stand out, and what are some common mistakes that students could maybe avoid from the get-go?
Yeah, we get in the region of over 1,000 applications for our solicitor apprenticeships, and this will vary from firm to firm, but at Stephenson Harwood, every application that we receive is manually read and reviewed by me or a member of my team. I think that is the majority approach across the city. I think there seems to be a perception among students that firms are using some kind of tech to review applications for them, but most of us are just manually reading thousands of application forms. The thing that makes applications stand out in a good way is when they are so incredibly specific to us that I could kind of cover up our name on the application form and still know that the candidate is talking about Stephenson Harwood. So I don't want to see, I'm applying to Stephenson Harwood because it's a leading international firm with a good reputation. You can say that about dozens of firms across the city. I want to see something really specific pertaining to particular areas of practice, maybe clients that we have, evidence of plenty of research. So as has been mentioned already by Ollie and by Clear, there are loads of resources that you can refer to when you're doing your research, and you can tell us that, I read this interesting article on Legal Cheek, or I read this article that the firm published and it was about this area of law and that was really exciting to me. So being incredibly specific is really helpful. I agree with Ollie that AI can be a really useful way to do some research, and it can definitely help you with things like structure and keeping track of the firms you're interested in and why you're interested in them. I would really advocate against using or relying on generative AI to help you write answers to questions like, why do you want to be a solicitor? Why is Stephenson Harwood the right firm for you, or whichever firm? Of those 1,000 or so applications that we receive, a good 80% will be basically identical to each other because candidates are copying and pasting answers from ChatGPT. And so they're not telling us anything about who those candidates actually are. Why are they going to be a good solicitor? Why are they interested in the firm? We're just reading the same kind of boilerplate repetitive text over and over. And what we would actually like as people reading the application forms is to read something that feels authentic and candid. And I think that would be my other piece of advice is remember when you're writing an application form, it's going to be a human being reading it at the end. So you don't need to litter it with keywords or sort of particular phrases that you think we're looking for. We want to read something that tells us that you have a good understanding of what the job is going to be, that you've done lots of research into the firm, and that you're really excited about the opportunity. And I think those are the things that make an application stand out to us.
Thank you, Daisy. And I think that's exactly the kind of approach that I was really, really trying throughout my application process to get through, is that personal element. I think that's really, really important. And, to take my application with Stevenson Harwood, that was what I was trying to lean on is, okay, what's something interesting about me personally? Because we've got 1,000 people applying with lots of different experience, lots of incredible personal traits of theirs. How can I link it to the firm? And I'm sort of trying to lean on my personal hobbies and passions to try and connect with the work that the firm does. Can I come to you with the same question, Aoife?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll take a different angle with this because I don't want to echo too much of the great advice that Daisy's given, but I would think more when you're actually filling out the application, like work experience is a huge part of that all firms, early careers teams will be looking for. And a good application will tell us what a candidate has done, but a great application would tell us why it matters and why it's going to make them a great apprentice in the future. And so in my view, the strongest applicants demonstrate genuine self-awareness, and they help us understand the skills they've developed, the impact they've had in these roles, and what they've learned from their experiences as well. So you can tell us your achievements, but reflect on them as well. And why is that going to make you a great solicitor in the future? And I think one of the biggest mistakes we see outside of people spelling Sherman wrong is the lack of personalisation. So to echo, Finn, what you said, and Daisy as well, is that sometimes candidates spend a little bit too much time trying to sound really impressive, that they lose sight of actually who they are as a candidate and why they'd be a great fit for our firm. So the great applications, in my view, feel really authentic. They're tailored to the firm and the particular opportunity they're applying for. And one piece of advice that I tend to give candidates, regardless of what stage they are in their academic journey, is to focus on quality over quantity, which is probably advice that you all hear from your teachers and literally every person in your life anyway. But I would find it hard to believe that you genuinely see yourself at 20 to 30 different law firms. They all stand for different things. They all have different employer values. They all have different client work. I would try and narrow that down to the golden number of maybe between 5 and 7. So you feel like you've really aligned with that firm and you can actually articulate that. And when you're going through your work experience, you don't need that legal experience or hundreds of examples of things that you've done in the legal world to prove that you'd be a great apprentice. I would go and choose those opportunities that genuinely demonstrate the skills that you have gained and explain them really clearly, but also taking that time to proofread or getting AI to do a bit of a proofread for you to make sure there are no spelling or grammar mistakes. We would really encourage the use of responsible AI throughout the application as well, tidy things up, but absolutely the same advice as Daisy's, do not use it to write your answer for you. We at A&O Sherman as well have real people reading your application from the first go, so you have at least 8 people advocating for you throughout the entire process.
Thanks, Aoife. And just to go to that point that you made about quality over quantity, I think a lot of the application processes in the written stage definitely kind of force that on us anyway. When we've got sort of these 250, 300 word counts, that's something I really, really struggle with. So I found myself reading back through my applications and thinking, that line's not contributing anything, so I can get rid of it. That line's not contributing anything. I read it back, so I think, well, I've missed talking about this. And it does force you to kind of think, where are my big selling points? Where are the key bits of information that I want to be contributing? So that just echoes that point of quality over quantity, I think.
Absolutely. And just taking the time to go through that application quality as well. Like the majority of firms, if not all of them, are giving you a really big application window, and double checking if that firm is working on a deadline driven recruitment basis or rolling recruitment is a good idea as well. For those that are deadline driven, you've got until a certain date, usually between 6 to 8 weeks, to submit a brilliant application, do your online tests as well. But making sure that you just give it a bit of time. Like, I'm a big fan of write something, sleep on it for a couple of days and come back to it. And you might read it again and think, God, that sounds awful. Why did I write that? Or actually, I forgot about this. Or maybe getting one of your friends or anybody you live with or people that are surrounding you, do you mind just having a look at this for us? Because they might think of something that you've forgotten as well. So I always think it is worth just spending a little bit more time. Pretty much all of the apprenticeship opportunities are open over the Christmas period as well. And it's kind of designed like that to make sure that you have the time outside of school work in order to put a bit of thought to your applications as well. So while you're on your winter breaks and Christmas holidays, you've got that time to really reflect on the quality of the applications that you're submitting.
That's great. Thank you for that, Aoife. And I'd massively echo everything in both what you and Daisy have said, and certainly can see those being reflected through my application processes. So if I just come to you all on a bit of a quick fire question, what would be one piece of advice that you would give? I'll start with you, Clea, on this, if that's okay. What would be one piece of information that you wish you'd have had, either sort of reflecting and telling your younger self, or if you wish that you'd been on a webinar like this today when you were a student applying for an apprenticeship? What would be one piece of sort of golden advice that you wish you'd have received?
I think at the beginning of the application process, I was really trying to figure out what the firm wanted to see from me, as opposed to actually just staying true to myself. So I would say, like, my one piece of advice is stay true to yourself. I think it's very easy for you to want to try and turn yourself into this like lawyery persona, whatever stereotype you're thinking of. But in reality, I think especially with the drive for apprenticeships, with the help of City Century, law firms want something different. They want authenticity, they want you. So don't go into that slippery slope of being someone you're not. And because even if you do get it through being someone you're not, that's who they expect for you to behave as for the next 6 years. And you're going to struggle fitting in. So I would really suggest, like, be who you are, stay true to yourself, because you'll be able to find the firm that will actually accept you for your personality, for your real experiences. And I think that's something that helped me go forward with by the end of the application season.
Thanks, Clea. What about you, Ollie? What would be the one piece of advice you wish you'd have received when you were sort of coming into your apprenticeship application cycle?
I think it's quite cliche, but I would say the fact that hard work pays off. I don't think that there's, a certain amount of hours when it comes to researching a firm that any sort of person would do. I think it kind of base level, a lot of people will be making the same points. And I think that just, at least in my case, with the feedback that I've received, kind of going a little bit deeper, spending a lot more time understanding the firm like it's the back of your hand really does make a difference. And this was something that I always thought, who can get the nichest point with regards to the firm? In my interview, I brought up some sort of sustainability posts that one of the partners in the commodities team had done. And even when it came to my senior associate interview, I even brought up the most recent post that he'd done for the HFW bulletin board. So I think, yeah, always hard work pays off, and there's just trying to amaze whether that be the firm or the interviewers themselves with the knowledge that you have of the firm.
That's great. Thanks, Ollie. Can I come to you on that one, Daisy? What piece of advice, if you were to give one top tip to people applying to Stephen Starwood for solicitor apprenticeships, what would you give them?
Yeah, just do loads of research. You can't do too much, and time spent on reconnaissance is never wasted. It will help you identify whether an apprenticeship is the right route for you. And once you've done that, it will help you identify which firms you should target, what kind of law you are interested in, and what kind of lawyer you want to be. There are so many resources available, and I think absolutely make the most of all of them.
That's great. Thank you. And finally, yourself, Aoife?
I think, not to echo everyone's advice, but actually just having a think about what type of person you are and what environment you think you're going to thrive in. Making this decision at 17 or 18 is so overwhelming. I do think it is important to acknowledge how difficult those decisions can be, particularly if you're quite an impressive candidate and you are juggling multiple offers and university routes as well. It can be overwhelming to have so much choice sometimes. But I think I wouldn't underestimate the value of authenticity and really being an individual throughout the process. Lawyers come in all shapes and sizes from every background under the sun. So why not lean into that a little bit more and tell us about who you are as a person and why you will thrive in this environment? I think it's important before you do that to narrow down exactly what that environment looks like for you and what 6 years time looks like, or what 25, 30 years time looks like as well. But also lean on, City Century, other organisations and early careers teams at firms who will be able to hold your hand through these processes as well. No one is expecting you to know how to do this as a teenager on your own. That is exactly what we are here for, in order to help you make that decision and help you through the process. And so you feel supported doing so as well.
Thanks, Aoife. And that sort of brings to a close the main questions from the session. But as always, myself and Paul have gone through the sign-up forms and pulled out some of our standout questions that have come from the audience. So thank you for those, and thank you for those contributions. And as we go through the final part of the session, please do feel free to pop some questions in the chat, in the Q&A function as they come to you. So if I come back to you, Daisy, on this one, are there any common mistakes that are often made that students could eliminate from the start, and how can they avoid making those going forward through their applications?
Aoife's already identified a good one. Spell the name of the firm correctly. We get an awful lot of Stevenson with a V rather than a PH, Stevenson Hardwood with a D in the middle, Stevenson Harewood, Haywood, all sorts of things like that. So, and those applications do get rejected right away. So that's quite a quick thing that you can do to avoid sort of falling into that pitfall. I mentioned AI already. And not copying and pasting from ChatGPT or something similar into the application form, because it will be so generic and it just isn't a good enough answer to progress to the next stage. Not just getting the name, spelling the name correctly, but do make sure if you're doing multiple applications, say you're applying to A&O Sherman and you're applying to Stevenson Harwood, if you are copying from one application form that you've already written to another, don't forget to change the name of the firm. We all see quite a lot of, oh, I'm excited to apply to Clifford Chance or Wedlake Bell or whoever it might be. And you sort of think, okay, so if you can't pay enough attention to detail to notice that you've done that, then that's another reason for us to reject the application. So attention to detail throughout is really super important. Making sure that the application is well written, proofreading it before you press submit, getting someone else to read it for you, because it does need to be, with 1,000 applications to read, it has to be flawless. So I think that would be another top tip / something to avoid, is any kind of drafting errors, basically.
That's great. Thank you. What about yourself, Aoife?
I think, just to we get a lot of Sherman with an E, or when we were legacy A&O, we'd get the wrong ovary, which was quite frustrating to be reading throughout applications. I think, Daisy's completely right. If you can't even pay enough attention to spell the firm name right, I don't trust the rest of the recruitment process. And I think being really individual about your motivations for that firm, like your motivation for going into law is quite individual to you anyway. And I think, Daisy, you mentioned this right at the beginning of the session as well, is that we hear quite a lot about A&O as an international firm post-merger. They're buzzwords that you tend to find as soon as you Google a firm name, and we know them off by heart. So if we're listening to them in your answers or read them in your application, we know that you haven't actually taken a bit of time to go and do that research to work out why this firm is specific to you. And I think, again, just kind of one big mistake we see as well is people leaving it to the last minute. Even though we are deadline driven and we make sure that those application windows are long enough for students to take their time throughout applications, we still get people who email us after the deadline saying the Wi-Fi crashed or the laptop crashed or they couldn't get something loaded in time. Please make sure you're doing it before the deadline. So if these issues do happen, we can pick them up for you, because we're not picking them up at 6 o'clock on a Sunday evening, unfortunately, when the deadline is that night.
That's great. Thank you. I'll pass over to you, Paul, for our next question.
Yeah, sure. So the next question we've had in is one for the apprentices. And the question is, how can I effectively prepare for the application process, such as assessment centres, interviews, and the like over the summer? So how can the students make best use of their summer, I suppose, in terms of being application ready and application process ready for the next application cycle later in the year? Can I come to you first on that one, Ollie?
Yes, absolutely. So I'd say first of all, be extremely organized. I myself, I had a large spreadsheet with regards to all the deadlines that I was looking at. As mentioned earlier, also MLP have usefully done this as well. But in terms of when it comes to interview prep and AC prep, I know that this can be quite hard to come across. But have a look at networks, see what you can find. MLP do hold a few kind of online workshops, or also, for example, months ago, they held an event at an in-person event at Freshfields with regards to kind of interview questions. So any kind of help that you can get through other people in networks, I definitely try and push it that way. However, if you can't really find anything, again, try and, sit in front of the mirror, assess yourself, record yourself, look back on it, see how you do. Again, get AI to come up with some questions or some sort of AC questions that you can prepare for yourself. Again, really coming back to that AI point to supplement your application, not to do it for you. So when it comes to these assessment center questions and the interview questions, these will help you a lot. And even if you do try to record it, you can actually get it marked by AI as well and possibly give some feedback. If not, reach out to those online, those through LinkedIn, whether those be apprentices who might be willing to help. Just see, and I would say just reach out, look at your network, see what you can obtain, and if not, go further than that, and then try and find other networks that can help you.
Thanks, Ollie. And Clea, best use of the summer?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to research again. If you've got an assessment center lined up, really have a look at what the email says, like what's the information that they've given you? Have they told you what sort of interview will you be given? Is it a partner, is it a FIAN, or is it early careers? And you can sort of assess what sort of questions you'll get from that. Again, like Ollie said, AI is really helpful in generating some questions and sort of messaging people on LinkedIn and reaching out and letting them know that you've got an offer at hand. In terms of the summer, I would just say keep on researching. I think year 12 summer especially is so important to figure out what area of law you're interested in and what sort of firms that you're interested in. So sort of back to how we were talking about the various resources that you've got AI, you've got Legal Cheek, you've got Chamber Students. So just keep on. I think to second on Ollie's point of hard work really does pay off just during that time. If you're able to really figure out exactly what it is that you're interested in, it will pay off at the end.
Brilliant, thanks. Finn?
Thank you, Paul. So with that does bring to a close our main questions from the session. I'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to put things in the Q&A if you have got any. So far, looking at the Q&A, it seems that we must have had such a brilliant panel. We've answered all of your questions, which is great to see. I'll come to you, Paul, for your closing thoughts and comments while we just give students a couple of minutes to put those in the chat.
Yeah, sure. So sort of listening to what I've heard from the great panel today, and thank you so much to each of you for your contributions. I think I've got really 3 tips to finish on from me, and I always like to kind of think of them as memorable words. So I call it the 3 R's, and that's research, reach out, and resilience. So taking research, I think the point that's been made well on this session is take the time to really understand the firms that you're applying to and ensure that you've gone beyond the landing pages of the individual firms' websites. So you might, over the summer, start looking at thought leadership reports, sector-specific reports for the sectors and industries that those firms operate in, podcasts, deal press releases. And if you're interested in the firm's approach to responsible business, you'll probably find the Responsible Business Impact Report on the firm's website. So it's really about doing that deep dive. I always like to say, if I was buying a car, I like to see what's under the bonnet rather than just looking at the surface. And so I think it's do that deep dive research, and so that at every stage of the application process, from forms through to assessment centres and the like, you can really demonstrate that you understand the firm and have made the right decision, that the firm is right for you as well as you being right for the firm. Reach out, connect, really simple one. Build and use your network. LinkedIn is a wonderful resource there. So reach out to apprentices at your target firms and ask them about their experiences and how they prepared when going into the application cycle. And I think any hints and tips that you can glean from those successful candidates at your chosen firms will definitely boost your confidence and assist you in putting your own best foot forward. And I think importantly, I'd also connect with your peers, people who are on the same journey as you. So Ollie mentioned earlier some of the kind of WhatsApp groups and the social media groups that you can join, so that you can all support each other on the journey, because it is a difficult journey. It's a competitive environment, and the more support you can afford each other, yes, you're in competition, but I think there is a moment where you can sort of help each other to put your own best feet forward. And then finally, I think from me, it's about resilience. So I think it is such a competitive process. We've heard about some of the numbers in relation to numbers of applications for available places. So I think it's really important that you stay resilient in that highly competitive market. Rejection, unfortunately, is part of the journey, and it's not a reflection on your capabilities. So don't dwell on rejection, learn from it and move forward. I always like to throw in a quote here from the tennis legend Billie Jean King, who once said, "For me, losing a tennis match isn't failure, it's research." And so I think if you turn any kind of rejections into a positive and say, look, this is all research towards my end goal, I think that will ensure that you maintain the kind of level of resilience you need in order to be successful eventually in the process. And, you know, just going on that point, resilience, over the last year, I've had the privilege to support Finn on his journey. And I think he's kind of testament to how resilience, grit and determination can lead to great things in the end. And I think I want to give Finn the last word on this one. It's our last kind of RCC session. So any closing comments from you, Finn?
None to add to that, Paul, apart from a massive thank you to our brilliant panel. Daisy just had to run. She's had to go to another meeting, but massive thank you to everyone for your time this evening. Thank you to you for taking the time to engage with the sessions, to get on board with asking us some questions, giving us some questions to put to our panel. And we're wishing you all the success with your applications going forward. As Patrick, one of our co-CEOs, will always say, please do reach out and connect with us on LinkedIn, follow our pages, connect with us individually, and we can follow your journeys. That's what we really do like to see, is, you know, as has happened with me, I've been very fortunate to work with the team and then be successful in securing an apprenticeship at the end of that period. So that's exactly what we want to see from you as well. So let us follow your journey. Let us see what you're up to, how you're getting on, and hopefully the advice that we've provided throughout the course of the series has been really, really useful for you.